So for people that don't know, there are fans of Schorem and my work apparently that got my face tattooed. The first time that happened, first time it ever happened, it was a guy who got my face on his hand. So that is also quite, the first thing I thought was, are you left or right? Because he is off with my face on his hand, right? I was like, really? This is so weird.
Hi and welcome to a new episode of Face Tattoo Talks, a series in which I interview interesting people that have face tattoos. My name is Joachim Stijls and I've been photographing people with face tattoos for the past 5 years now. You can check out some of my work on my Instagram, which I will link down below. This year I also challenged myself to do one video interview each month. And even though I started the year off strong, I did miss some of the last months this year. My last video with Aiko Hoste, a piercing artist as well as a suspension facilitator, dates back from a couple of months ago. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure to go check it out or watch some of the other videos in this series that I've been putting together since the beginning of this year. For this episode, I decided to interview Rob. Rob is a co-founder of iconic barbershop Schorem in Rotterdam, as well as the co-founder of pomade brand Reuzel. I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that he's one of the, if not the most influential barbers in the world right now. And if you go check out his Instagram, you can see that he gathered over 1 million followers over the course of the past few years. Rob is great at telling stories and he shares some very nice ones in this interview I did with him. As always, if you enjoy these types of videos, please feel free to share it with your friends or family who might also find it interesting. And if you want to stay up to date about future videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any new interviews. So much for the intro. I really hope you enjoy my interview with Rob and see you in the next video. Bye bye.
Hi, my name is Rob and also known as Bertus, and I am the co-owner to be precise, of Schorem Haarsnijder and Barbier, a barbershop in Rotterdam that has become, well, it's not bragging when it's the truth, right? It has become quite known around the world. So I also am the co-owner of a grooming brand called Reuzel Pomade, which also became quite known around the world. That is a good question, and I was in high school and I was quite, I know this is also going to sound super arrogant, but it is what it is. I was quite the prodigy in school. I picked things up really easy, but I also really had a problem with authority, and being in school, I was really, really unhappy in school. And I know a lot of people probably say this, but you know, like, oh, I was such a rebel. I don't think it was that. I was just like, not happy in school. It were like 2,000 kids. I did not fit in. Always been a little bit of an outcast. And through skateboarding, I discovered punk rock and also TV shows, comic books. At a certain point, this is going to sound super cheesy, but there was this TV show with Johnny Depp, and it's funny that I remember this, because this was actually a moment at the first episode. What was it called? 21 Jump Street. So this was this cop that went undercover in schools. And when he came fresh out of the academy, he played, like the rookie cop. And he had this side parting, like very clean cut American boy. And but he was chosen for this undercover program because he looked really young. And then they did a makeover. They put him in a leather jacket and they gave him a Pompadour. And I was so impressed by it. It's stupid that I remember this, but I was really impressed by that. And I was like maybe 13 or something. And through that hairstyle, combined with what I already knew, because my parents were always listening to Elvis Presley and blah, blah. That's where the aesthetics of rock and roll, because I love the music, but there's also the aesthetics, right? And this is how I now that I look back, I understand more what was happening to me, but I found that interesting, beauty in the margins of society. And I felt attracted to that whole rockabilly style and blah, blah. It was still developing. But then through skateboarding, you had skateboard videos coming out, Bendis, Public Domain, The Bones Brigade, of course. So that was my first introduction to American pop culture. This was growing, and then I was in high school, but I was already on the edge of being thrown out of high school because I was an absolute train wreck. I just wanted to fuck with teachers, you know. I was definitely a problem child at home, in high school. So I was bound to be thrown out of school. And but I remember that for school we were sent out to go on a internship for a week. You literally had to pick like something out of a bag, and that's where you were gonna go. Again, we're talking 25 years ago. And I picked this horrible job in some factory making catheters. You know, the shit they put, and I mean... And then another girl in my class, she picked a hairdressing salon. And I don't know, I think she either got sick or we traded because that's like the last thing that she wanted to do. However, it happened. I ended up in that salon. And that salon was owned by, I don't remember his name or nothing, but it was owned by a extremely gay guy, very flamboyant. For me, this was like new, you know, because I lived in a little village up in the north of the Netherlands. And also, maybe a little hard to believe now, but being gay in those days, and especially being out of the closet, it was dangerous. I mean, you could get beat up. This was really happening, you know. You got like the gay bashers back in the days. Everybody that was like too much over the top. But this guy, he flaunted it, man. He was wearing pink. He was over the top, and that's where I ended up. And I was a little wet behind the ears. It was like, it was a weird combination. But the fact that he embraced that and that he went out in the streets looking like that, you know. He was one of the first people that I met that was actually on the barricades to embrace who you are. It was very inspirational for me. I was like, man, because on one side it was like, because I was also a little, you know, because I was biased. I didn't know, and I was like, and then this guy, man, openly wearing his makeup, going out in the streets with the... And I was like, damn, this is one badass motherfucker, man. Being, you know, in a very feminine way maybe, but I was like, whoa. And then he was cutting the hair, and the way he was with his clients, saying like literally whatever, he had no filter. It was so new to me, and I was just flabbergasted by this guy. Plus, he talked about his profession with so much passion. And I saw his hands, and he was like very... I mean, I had to stand and watch, but he let me do chores, and I was like, wow, how every 30 or 40 minutes somebody came out of that chair being so happy with what he made. That's where my interest was born, I guess. Then at home, you know, after that week. I remember that one night I was with a couple of guys, you know, my skateboarding friends, and I think we were getting like really high, smoking weed, and this one guy goes like, because we were watching one of those skateboard videos that had punk rock music in it, you know, and so he was like, hey man, I want to have a mohawk too. So my dad had a pair of clippers, and I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, you know, I worked at a hairdressing salon. I know how to do it. I've only been there. I only watched that guy work for like 3 days, and I was like, oh yeah, fuck man, I'm experienced. So yeah, I did my first I totally fucked up the mohawk. That mother of that guy called my mother, that I fucked up his hair. It became a fucking shit show, but. I got fucking, how do you call it, home arrest, you know, because my mom was like, what did you do? And the mohawk was, I started in the middle, but I ended somewhere here. But the fact that I loved it, man, I loved it right away, because, you know, I saw it, and then I found out that, you know, I was not high school, I mean, you see behind me my books and everything. I'm a very curious, interested guy. I like to learn, but not what they force upon me. You know what I mean? And then, so through this experience, when I was actually kicked out of high school, so my mom went absolutely nuts because I am from quite a good family. So my mom was like, "Oh, he's going to be a doctor or whatever," but she was like, "Yeah, what are you going to do with your life?" and blah blah. And I said, "Mom, I want to go to beauty school." And she was like, "Wait, what?" I said, "I want to go to beauty school. I want to learn how to cut hair." And that's how it started. And so I ended up there. I needed to find a job because I had to like go to school for 1 day and then work for 4. That was the system then. Nobody hired me. I had green hair. It was, you know. And in the beginning, I sucked, man. I sucked so hard. I mean, I didn't know. I was really not good at it. But what was cool and what I really like now, looking back, because I moved to Groningen, you know, to the big city, and that's where I really learned about it, because you had the Vera, you had Simplon, there were bands playing, and I had a couple of friends playing in a band called the Gravediggers. And it was like a rockabilly, psychobilly band. They lived in a huge squat, and that was my first introduction to partying hard, amphetamines, you know, going on for 3 days. But these guys, you know, they taught me about psychobilly, rockabilly. They showed me the records, and they literally showed me record sleeves. Like, man, I want my hair like this, you know. And then it was like Demented Argo or Klingons or Meteors, you know. So Psycho Quiz, flat tops, and they were literally showing me how to do it because they already had the experience how to work with the hairspray and everything. So, for example, punk rockers and so, they don't put their hair up; they put their hair down, right? And then they spray it. And then you just take clippers and go freehand over it. You don't learn that shit in school. But I was doing that. And I still cut hair that way. So now on Instagram, there's a lot of people that copy the things that I do. And like, "Oh, where did you learn this?" I learned it from people in the street, man. You know? And also the way how you have to comb your pompadours. I skipped the whole school part. This is one question, because I know that you were worried. Like, So, yeah, that's what I was doing, and that's how I got into it. And then my name within that scene was like, you know, oh, you got a pompadour? You go to him, you know? So, and I would cut for basically booze, cocaine, and so I was just going around, you know, partying really, really hard and building a clientele. And yeah, that's how it started. And then I found a job at a really cool shop in Groningen called Copy Copy. It's not there anymore, but that's where all the cool kids went, and that's how I fell in love. And 36 years down the line, and I tell you one thing, and I know that people might think like, "Oh yeah, you're saying this because," I have not for 1 second in my entire life thought I need to go do something else. I was born to do this, and I love it. I'm not behind the chair anymore all day long. But when I do a great haircut and I see people, you know, and they look in the mirror, if you don't do this job, you don't know it, but you can see them, you know, you can see in the mirror that they feel good, they start to smile, they're like, "Damn, I look good." It's special, man. It's a special job. People tell you everything once they're in the chair, you know? So I'm a psychologist, I'm a barber, there is not a story in the world that I haven't heard of. People are fucking freaks, and somehow they tell me everything. Man, I can write 1 book, I can write 10 books just by the stories that I heard. So it was a good choice. Question 1, I think your SD card must almost be full.
De volle 13 minuten.
13 minutes. 1 question. Oh, my first tattoo, man, is this one here. I got it by Rinto, so I hope he's not going to watch this. But I think Rinto. Let's talk about the tattoo first. So it's the sign of, I think it's Cancer. Yeah, but so I had a girlfriend that was a Cancer, and I always go like, "No, it's 69, man," you know, and. But no, it's because I'm a Libra, so it doesn't even make sense. But that was my first one, and I got it by Rinto. Now, the story about that tattoo is not as interesting as the story about Rinto, because Rinto is one of the most known artists in the Netherlands, right? Really old school. And I was living in a small town in Groningen. Rinto had a shop in Groningen, but I had to travel from the big city to the small town where my parents lived, and I always had to take the bus. And Rinto, and I'm talking, this was even before I don't know how old I was, but I know that I was not allowed to travel with the bus, but I just skipped school, and then so my parents didn't know, but. I saw at one point there was this guy standing at the bus stop, long hair, and he was covered in the tattoos, man. He was covered in it. And this was something you didn't see that much. I know it's hard to believe now, and you could see that it was busy at the bus stop. There was like a circle around him of people that were afraid of him, and I was just intrigued, man. I must have been like 11 or 12-ish maybe. And this guy was standing there, super confident. I mean, if you know Rinto, it's a big Frisian guy, and so that turned out to be a Rinto. And I was just like blown away, like skulls, like the real old school shit, And then when I started working at that shop I mentioned before, one day Rinto walked in, and I was intimidated, man. I was like, damn, it's this guy, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't give him the haircut, unfortunately, because he ended up with a colleague of mine, but he cut his hair short. But it was my way in, because he was in the shop, so I actually gathered courage to talk to him. Can you imagine how impressive this guy was, because I was so young, and he was... So I was like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And that's how I ended up actually having the balls to step over the threshold of Rinto's shop. And that's how I got my first tattoo. And after that, I got a little bit bigger one, the Keith Haring one. It's really old, also by Rinto. And then I got some skateboarding brand thingy somewhere. And then, and then it went from there. It's a mess. A mess. I mean, look, I was living in squats. I was in the whole punk rock scene. So for me, I got a lot of free tattoos, for conventions and stuff. Do you see all the moths flying around? Damn. So this one is this is one from, this I just literally stole from Rob Zombie. He was still in White Zombie. I think the drummer had it. So the black cat with the rock and roll symbols, some dices and everything. Then all of a sudden I thought, oh no, I want the whole Maori thing. So I just got that, and then I stopped with that, and then I met Dan, who started Japanese. I mean, I really like my Elvis by Errol. But it's literally,
Biomic.
Huh?
Biomic.
My God, the Swiss cheese. Yeah, I mean, everybody from the 90s is like, oh yeah, fucking Geiger. Alien came out. He was like, this was a very punk rock thing back then. Everybody was getting biomechanics, but this is from one of my favorite comic books. You cannot even see what it is anymore. But honestly, I kind of like it, You can see that I started young. You can see that for me, it's a story, I still, when I see older guys covered in tattoo, nowadays, man, I follow a lot of artists. It's insane what they're doing. Insane. It's crazy with the colors and everything. And then I'm like, if I could do it again, I would probably go for full Japanese, one bodysuit. But then I was like, everybody was like, hey, you want a tattoo? I didn't even look at that way. For free, yeah. So I got a lot of bullshit. But it's also cool, man. And then I got the crass tattoo, and this guy was still practicing. So he worked on that for like 4 hours, man. You see it was scarred. It was like rotting. It was pus. I mean, I got tattoos in squats. Yeah, it's part of me. I got some good stuff, You know, I mean, on my legs is some beautiful work by Yushi. I still really like my back piece, so I got good stuff. But my arms were, of course, the first places to fill up. So, well, I'm not. I'm still pretty happy with the Japanese stuff. So, yeah.
I still think it's a very nice collection. Actually, when you already anticipate on my question as to what you would do with a clean slate. So, full Japanese bodies.
Full Japanese or old school, but the thing, I mean, I love what I find aesthetically beautiful is when you got all old school tattoos. I just, you know, the whole Sailor Jerry thing. I think that looks awesome. On the other hand, it's trendy, and so, but if it would be clean, I would start a collection. What I really like, my friend Chio, for example, he's like a real collector. He knows he's like that artist. You know, so when there is a convention, he will. I like that. I like that a lot. I never gave that any thought. I was very like spontaneous, like, oh yeah, whatever, throw it on. You know, I never gave any tattoo. There is literally not one tattoo that I thought about. You know, they're like, oh, I have to get this because it means this. No, it's just like, yeah, fill it up. So yeah, so I would definitely. I mean, I just love skulls. You know, I got a lot of skulls. But then now when I see Yushi's work, he's doing the complete suits, the body suits. Man, I can literally be jealous. I'm like, oh man, it looks so good. And so I would probably do something like that. But again, man, this is my life story. It's so good. It's so good, man. It's like, you know, it fits. Yeah. First, well, it's not the face, but the first one on my throat. I remember it's done by Mick. Also, I saw a girl at a convention who had a big Dayak tribal, and it was like, damn, that's hard, man, that's hard. And I remember that I got this. I must have been like 18 or something, 18, 19. Yeah, I just opened my shop in Dordrecht. And this, I knew Mick because he was a client of mine, and I just walked past his shop. I was super hungover that day, and I just walked in and be like, "Hey, you got time?" And he was like, "Yeah, what do you want?" I said, "Yeah, I want one of those Dayak things on my throat." So he just grabs a book and he goes like, "That one." I said, "Yeah, why not?" And then the next day, I'm literally in the shop going like, "Damn, what did I do now?" Because again, back then it was like people were like, "Whoa, Rob, what?" But yeah, that took about a week, and then I was used to it, you know. And then I got that and that, and the first one, like in my face, was the little razor blade. The little razor blade, and I got that like a year before we opened Schorem because I was like, well, when we opened Schorem, it was a big thing for me, for Lane, and it was just such a cool plan. And a lot of things came organically, but I did understand back then the power of being recognizable, you know? So we had the white jackets, we had the antiques. I grew, for the first time, I actually grew the, you know, what later became my signature mustache. It was, I wouldn't call it a concept, but it was definitely like, what can we do so people talk? You know, what can we do that people recognize us? So it was the three-piece suits, and it was quite a good plan. And one of the things was that little razor under my eye. And so, funny story, when I got this, so Adel did it. I do remember that I went into the tram afterwards and I never felt so looked at. I was like, oh fuck, what have I done? What have I done? Everybody. But again, that also took a week. My mom didn't like it, but it did work. This is one of the most copied barber tattoos in the world. The little razor blade under the eye. So I did that. So that worked. Funny thing though is a week before we opened the shop, we had an interview with, no, not an interview, Jules Deelder was over at our place because we shot a little movie with him, and I am like a huge fan of Jules Deelder, and so we were like really like little children that he came over to our place and we talked and blah, blah, and he knew so much about music and everything, so but we got really drunk, and that night I was walking with him back from Lane's house to a bar, and I ran into it's not a cool story, but I ran into a street light pole, like really hard, like gunk, and dead eye. Yeah. So I had a black eye like this, and that was 3 days before the shop opened. So we had interviews with newspapers, and so in all these newspapers, it said Schorem, which of course means, you know, scumbags. And there I was standing in this white jacket with my tie and my head, but with a black eye, like it came out of a fight, with the tattoo. And that became such an iconic. People thought it was makeup, like, oh, no, it was a real. I mean, you know, the story how I got it is not. I made up some stuff back then, but now I'm honest about it. But yeah, you know, sometimes things come together. Well, then I got the head tattoo. This is actually a cover up. Adol did a skull under there, but it was too small. And also my skin didn't really take that because Errol is known for his like super soft shadowy work, which is beautiful, but it didn't really work on my head. So Yushi covered it up, old Tabori, which was, I mean, I'm not a tough guy, man. I mean, I love having tattoos, but getting them, I am a crybaby. I'm like, and especially the Tabori, you know, lying still on the skull. So I said to Yushi, like, man, I'm just going to do 1 hour every time. I literally set an alarm. Like, this is what I'm going to do. When the alarm goes, we're done. And but I got that. And then later on, we made a book called Roach, which I'm really proud of. It's a collaboration with one of Dutch most known comic book artists, Erik Kriek, which I thought was really cool. Plus, we did it in Corona time, so for me, this is like, well, you know, we took the shit show and made something. So for me, that is like a document of those days. And when that came out, I treated myself to the little roach. So for everybody that doesn't know, Rotterdam, our nickname, well, the nickname they gave us is like the roaches, which they thought would be an insult, but as Rotterdam does, they were like, oh, roaches, huh? So you mean the insect that will survive a nuclear war? You know, we come in legions, we're hard to kill. Yeah, fuck yeah, we're roaches. So, yeah, I got the roach with the barbershop collars. My ex-girlfriend hated it. She hated it. Oh, my God, she was so mad. She was so mad. She was like, if you get anything ill, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, well, you know, it's there. It's not coming off. She hated it. She couldn't look at me for like a month. I had to sit like this. But I really like it. Plus, I don't see it, man. When I look in the mirror, I'm not like, oh, I don't really see it anymore.
Disappears in your own face.
Yeah, it's... Oh, shit. Yo, I got those. Yeah, I totally forgot about those. So I got the woman. Is the woman here? Yeah. Robert Albers from Waalwijk did that one. And I find that funny because it's like a girl whispering in my ear, telling secret little lies, gossip, you know. I found that one funny. But to balance the shit out, because that is my mind, man. It's always like... So I got the rancid punk, you know, from that band, like screaming in my ear. Which is, of course, driving me nuts. One screaming, one whispering. I'm like, wait. It's like my little angel and my devil, you know. And good plans, bad plans, man. Or maybe around, you know. But yeah, I really like those. I kind of forget that I got those, to be honest. But and the other day I was thinking, well, we were talking about this earlier. What is the thing with face tattoo? I always said never. Never, you know. I'm like, no, not my face, and you know, because I can't take it off, but it kind of grows on you, right? Because when I got my first one, face tattoos were not a thing. You were definitely, I was one of the few. I only knew like a couple of people that had full face tattoos, and it had a really high shock factor back, but we're talking like 15 years ago. So, but honestly, the other day I saw somebody that had like really cool Polynesian tattoos, like, and I was like, Maybe, you know, or just like this guy from America, Jack Black. He's got like two tribals, like really, and I'm like, damn, it looks really cool. And the problem is, once it gets in my head, it just marinates, and I'm like,
Living its own life.
yeah, I cannot really forget about it. Plus, now I'm like, there should be like a little lettering here, maybe, just because this is a little high. It might be nice. It's so, everybody that's got tattoos that's watching this is like, yeah, I know. And also the thing you said is, yeah, I hate the empty spaces. I mean, these are my collector's legs, so I'm cool with these, you know, when I travel. I usually get like little friendship things or whatever. From the knees up, Hushi is doing full legs here, so that's all planned out. But now I'm like, yeah, and I got a new girlfriend who has a completely blacked out arm, and every time I look at that, I'm like, damn, it looks cool. So maybe I'm gonna do that. It's how it goes, dude. You're never done. The first time that happened, there's a lot out there. So for people that don't know, there are fans of Schorem and my work apparently that got my face tattooed. The first time that happened, first time it ever happened, it was a guy who got my face on his hand. So that is also quite, the first thing I thought was, are you left or right? Because he is jerking off with my face on his hand, right? I was like, really? This is so weird. I also met a guy who had me here. And I'm like, so every time you fucking masturbate, you come in my face? You know, it's just, it's weird, man. And see, I kind of get it because I got my best friend here, Chio, and then I got my other best friend here, Lane, and I got a colleague here on my leg, which was a completely random thing that spontaneously happened somewhere in Miami. So it's kind of what you do, but I do want to say that as weird as it is, because I am honored, don't get me wrong, I'm super honored. The fact that somebody wants to walk around with me the rest of his life, that means a lot. Within my profession, I definitely have a hero too. Fidel Sassoon changed the world in hairdressing, one of the most influential hairdressers that's ever been. So I would totally get a portrait of him. So if I mean like 1/10 of what Fidel Sassoon means to me, I get it. But since I'm still alive and meeting these people, because it's really weird, man, when somebody rolls up their sleeve and your face is there. One time I was in Portugal and this guy, we're taking photos after the show, and this guy walks up to me and he starts unbuttoning his pants. And I'm like, bro, hey, I don't know what your plan is here. And he puts down, and my face is here, man. I'm literally looking up at his penis, and I'm like, what's wrong with these people, man? Put me on your back or something. But it's always a good thing to also have a laugh about. And most of the people that got the tattoos have a great sense of humor, because I always joke. I'm like, man, really? This big? You know? Because I don't know how to react otherwise. Because it's a huge compliment. I get it. Can you imagine that I roll up my sleeve and your face is there? What are you gonna do? I'm always like, man, you could have gotten a naked woman or whatever. I mean, that's what I would have chosen. But for everybody who's watching that actually's got a butcher tattoo, thanks, guys. I love it. But it just makes me shy. It's just like I don't really know what to say. You know, the honor is a little bit too big. Man, getting sober, best and worst decision of my life. I needed to sober up. I did a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs for almost 30 years. And, well, you kind of fool yourself because you're always like, oh, it's recreational and blah, blah. But, you know, I was drinking every day. I was doing speed and GHB and MDMA. And I would literally do everything, whatever I could get my hands on. And at a certain point, I was never sober anymore. And I was running a business. I was married. I was about to lose everything. And I just really started to hate myself. And, the depressions. And I mean, it was not good. So from one day to another, I quit. I've been a vegetarian for a really long time. But I went completely vegan, because I just didn't want to put negative shit in my body anymore. So dead animals, that's bad karma, man. For me, like meat in any form, dairy, it always comes with pain, terror, fear. Those are not emotions you want to put in your body. So I cleaned up, but I'm a very, I have a tendency to get addicted. So I've always been a bit of a runner. But to get sober, I just had to get my mind off shit. So start running, started working out just to keep my mind off things. And but now I'm actually more fit than I've ever been in my entire life. So, I don't want to become like the preachy guy, but I can tell you this, for everybody that does struggle, it's totally worth it. Because now I get up. What I did not understand when I was doing so much is that depression and fear and guilt, anxiety, I thought I was fighting it with the drugs and the alcohol, but they were the main reason that all these negative emotions just kept on going. So I kind of got rid of all that bullshit, and so I feel better than I ever did. But I'm also going to be very honest, it's boring as fuck. Yeah, I mean, I've always been an advocate for partying hard, living hard, and I had an amazing time, So I regret hurting people with my behavior. That is something I really regret. But next to that, man, I had an absolute blast. I had the best time ever, I've done every freaky thing you can think of, and I have the memories, and I look back at them and I smile. But, and you know what was the biggest trick for me? I've tried to stop so many times before, but I always was like, never again. But that is not how you should do it. The trick is this, not today. Yeah? It's just a different way of looking at it. So if you go to a 12-step program and it works for you, fine. For me, the whole idea of never, that just doesn't resonate with me. But now I'm like, not today. And it works for me because I wake up, I go to the gym or I go for a run. I feel strong. I feel very good about myself. I want to go to work. I want to do cool shit. And that's reason enough to not do it today. But tomorrow, who knows? Look, we only got 5 minutes on the card. So this is an impossible question because look at everything I got. But I am going to go for it. If you never read a comic book, Saga, story, artwork, this is so good. But again, I can do a full interview and podcast about all the shit that I collected throughout the years. If you want to buy a Lego set, I love music. That is very reasonable priced. Get the Jazz Quartet. This is such a... Oh shit, her head fell off. Come on, baby. There you go. This is such a brilliant set. It's so smart how they came up with that. And then with the band, there's too much, But recently, I'm really into the Bridge City Sinners. I saw them in Haarlem. I saw them in... where did I see them? In Utrecht not too long ago. It's like crossover, a little bit of bluegrass, a little bit of punk rock. But you cannot really put a label on this band. But what I love about this band, Libby, the front woman, is amazing. But normally there's always you're focused on, but in this band, every musician in this band is a force of their own. And together, I'm really in love with this band. 5 minutes. So, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're still here, thank you for watching the whole thing. I think we should do another interview talking about just books and shit, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.